بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم، والصلاة والسلام على أشرف الأنبياء والمرسلين نبينا محمد وعلى آله وصحبه أجمعين. Today inshallah we are going to talk about chapter 18. Chapter 18 is titled, as you can see here, Security Auditing. If you can remember, in chapter 8 I think we talked about the intrusion detection, and then in chapter 9 we talked about intrusion prevention. In order to be able to detect any intrusion, we have to have such a recorded log file, as we said, which is logging and recording the events in real time or periodically, in order to be able to detect any violation of the organization security policy. Okay, so here we need to have the security audit trial, the one that is listed or stated at the bottom of this slide. The security audit trial, or audit log in other words, which is a chronological record of system activities or events that is sufficient to enable the reconstruction and examination at a later stage or on the real time of the security status and so on, and on the compliance even with the security policy and procedures. Okay, so this is the system audit log or trial. It is the record that is recording and storing on a specific database or software all the events of the system. We usually need it at a later stage to conduct a security audit, which is the top one, the security audit, which is an independent review. So it is a review process. Auditing, it is like reviewing, examining the audit log, examining, reviewing the audit logs of the system and records of the events, activities, in order to see, to measure whether all security procedures and policies, strategies, standards are or have been followed or not. Is there full compliance with them by all systems, all employees, or there is any breach or any violation in general? Okay, so the main objective of the security audit in general is in order to help or give the adequate information for intrusion detection, and the other one for accountability. Okay, that is here, the accountability. Okay, if all events, activities of the system, of the applications, of the users, as we will see, are recorded, well, so every user will be accountable, will be held accountable, will be held accountable for his actions. Okay, so this is an illustration of how the audit analyzer or examiner will be able to utilize what is stored on the security audit trial or log in order to later on raise an alarm or alert, it is said, that will be used at a later stage to decide whether there is a need to do or to take an action or not. The security audit log or trial can be a single one, centralized one, or it can be distributed as you can see here in on this diagram. But even if it is distributed, there should be a way to aggregate what is collected from all distributed trials together in a single database or analyzer. So you may have noticed that we mentioned system activities or events, actions many times. What we mean by events, that it may take different meanings or types. Some of them can be like all introduction of any object, creation of an object or of a file, of a folder, of a table, etc. Deletion of an object, distribution, revocation, or granting an access rights to specific users or even other systems. All of these should be logged. The actions of identification and authentication, as you can see here, whether they are succeeded, identification or authentication attempts, or failed ones, all of them should be logged, should be recorded, and any other security related or similar actions. The guidelines, there are some guidelines to implement such a security audit trial. It is not recommended to just set a default setting or configuration for any auditing system and let it run without customizing it to the specific environment or specific organization or corporate where it will work. Okay, for example, from the beginning, the audit requirements in general should be agreed with the appropriate management, whether it is the IT department or security department, cyber security department, or even any other departments that may involve other departments that are not directly under the umbrella of information and communication technology. Okay, then the scope of the checks should be agreed and controlled as well. If, for example, it is related to financial transactions, should all the details of that financial transaction should be checked and recorded, logged, or not? Such as, let's say, the salaries of our employees. Now they are going to, the file or the records will be created and prepared by our finance department in order to make the pay slips to be sent to the bank. So at the date of the 27th of this month, it will be transferred to the employees' accounts. Should this transaction, which is creating the pay slips for all salaries for our employees, should be recorded just from the abstraction, from the top level, just the names and the IDs and the date of the creation of that record and the date of transfer from the organization account to the employees accounts, or even the details of the specific amount of salary for each employee should be recorded as well. Okay, because some of them might be considered private to each employee. So they don't want IT staff or cybersecurity staff to know their salaries. Only the concerned employees from the financial department should be allowed to see that. This is just an example. So the scope should be agreed upon from the beginning. What has to be collected and to what level of details. So this is second one. The third one, the checking, it is related to what I have just said. The checks, checking, I mean the checks. The checking here should be limited to read-only access to software and data. The audit reviewer or analyzer should not be able to change the settings or the contents of the files in order to maintain the non-repudiation and accountability. So no one of our employees or of any breacher will be able to repudiate, to reject, deny that he has committed this. He may say, no, the auditor is the one who created that record or file, and so on. So the auditors should be only allowed to read only. The fourth one, that access other than read only should be only allowed for isolated copies from the system files, that it is like another copy from the original one, the main one that is on the real running system, and so on, with specific permissions. Should not be allowed for all auditors. The resources for performing the checks should be explicitly identified and made available. The tools that the auditor is using to analyze and to check, to review our records should be made available, should be known. It is not acceptable for the auditor to say, no, I am using my own tools. This is just mainly to make the reviewing, the auditing process as much reliable as possible. The requirements for special or additional processing should be identified and agreed as well. There might be a need to do like an analysis processes outside the company network, for example, or in the cloud, or using other unagreed upon software. This should be agreed from the beginning. All access should be monitored. All access of the auditors as well as the employees should be audited, monitored, logged. All procedures, requirements, and responsibilities should be documented as well during the auditing process. The persons carrying out the audit, the auditors, should be independent of the activities audited. There must not be any business relation or conflict of interest between the auditors themselves and the activities they are reviewing, they are auditing. Okay, and this is again an example of what should be collected and recorded and stored on the security audit trial. Events related to the use of auditing software, systems, operating systems, applications, and even the users. These are examples of auditable items. You need just to have a general idea what is supposed to be audited. As you can see, the main data, main info of the user itself, of the accesses, operations. We'll see in a while what are they. Even it is because it is sometimes neglected, even the physical access audit trials should be recorded and should be reviewed as well. For example, who has access that lab physically? Because the breach, for example, or the security issue was, for example, stealing, let's say, a PC. Somebody entered the lab and stole one of the PCs from the lab. Okay, how are we going to detect who has done that first? Or first, how we are going to detect whether that occurred, happened or not, and then after detecting it, who did it? Without having this physical access audit trials, we will not be able to do so because there was no any digital access to the system. So we may know by the username or the account who has accessed that computer. Okay, so it is essential to record even the physical access, such as the date, time, location, where that was accessed at last time, who accessed that room or that server. Okay, there are different ways to record or to keep the audit trial data. One of them is read and write file on a host. It is the easiest way, but unfortunately it is vulnerable to attack by an intruder. If I am recording the events direct on the host on the computer itself, that later on I am going to audit it, there is like a potential for that audit trial, audit log to be destroyed or deleted by the intruder, the hacker, the attacker themselves. Okay, the other option is write once and read many times. So it will be written just one time, it will be recorded one time, but can be reviewed many times. It is like if you remember the CD-ROM, for example, or DVD. It is stored on a CD-ROM or DVD that is write only. It is not rewritable like the first one. Okay, even though that it is relatively more secure than read and write ones, but it needs like a supply, a continuous supply for those devices that are going to store these. Like if we are storing them on CD, DVD, or even external hard disk, it will be it will be filled. The capacity will be full today or tomorrow. So there is a need to have other ones, to buy another and another, so it might be costly, and it may need time to, because they will not be stored on one place, so there will be a need for accessing to access them. There will be a need for more time and more effort to go through them, through all CDs or DVDs or hard disks. Okay, the third one is write only device, and usually it is paper based. It is like sent, the event is recorded and immediately sent to a printer, for example, that is printing the events event by event, line by line. But this option or this alternative is not that practical. It is impractical to keep printing on papers the logs and then at a later stage, either periodically or continuously, are going to review them and audit them. It is even much more difficult to analyze than having it on digital formats, so you can use some algorithms here or there, but it is an option. Generally, the confidentiality and integrity of these audit trials should be preserved, as it is important. So we can use for them encryption, digital signatures, access control, any data authentication that we talked about in one of the chapters. Okay. So usually it is, or there is a need to implement or execute logging to capture the events and take records for them. Usually it comes with the operating system. There are some default basic ones that come with different operating systems like Windows or Unix, but there are some more professional and advanced softwares that we can utilize to implement and capture the logging. We have, as an example, the Windows event log here. There are three types of event logs. You can go on your computer if you are using Windows, and you can see either system log, application log, and security log. System logs, from its name again, use your common sense. It is all activities that are related to the system, the operating system related activities. Application, those activities that are related to application level or user level applications, and the security that is related to the security events. They are called Windows Local Security Authority. Let's say Local Security Authority. Here is an example. Here is an example of them. As you can see, there is the event type, it is source, category, ID. This is one of their identifiers, the numerical IDs, date and time, and so on. So the categories of the Windows events are account login events, account management, directory, service access, logon events to different applications, or policy change, privilege use. Similar, another one that is similar to it in Unix, syslog, but as it is related to a specific operating system, as usual, we said that it is not necessary to know the details of it, but to know the general idea. It is generally for logging purposes. So it records all events on that specific host, for example, or even on the network. There are some add-on features to it here, to the syslog of Unix, that it has the capability or feature of log analysis itself. It provides like at least initial analysis, whether this exceeds specific domain, specific threshold, specific baseline or not. It may incorporate also event response. You can say like if this and this happen, so do this action or response. If this or the number of simply the number of for example failed attempts exceeds 3, so send an email to the administrator, for example, and so on. These are some of the responses. Or block and send an alert to the administrator, and so on. It works under specific protocols, but we don't want to bother you about. These are examples of the messages that come with syslog. Let's move to the audit trial analysis here. The analysis, as we saw with syslog, can be embedded with the, let's say, event logger, let's name it like syslog or Windows log files, or it can be done by a separate independent software, or it can be done manually by the auditors themselves. So the analysis vary, as we said, that it can be embedded, can be independent software, or even it can be manual, but it has to be interrelated with the context where it is working, like the environment, the context. If, for example, let's say the failed login attempts should be, for example, vary if the location is inside the company from having that failed access attempts from outside or remotely. For example, it is okay if the location of the access attempts is from within the boundary of the company to exceed 3. It is okay, because by mistake the keyboard might be in Arabic while the password is in English. There might be like a different keyboard setting. It is put or set the password set based on keyboard of UK English, let's say, but now the keyboard that the user is using is under the order of US English language keyboard, and so on, for any reason. that the genuine authorized user has failed to enter the credential, the username and password. We should have different dealing with it. If it is on the premise of the company, the probability of having an intruder from inside might be less. Okay, but if it is a remote access from outside the company, for example, no, we just limit it to 3 or 2 or even once, and then we will send that alert to the administrator or block the system or the account and ask for further authentication questions or information. Okay, so the context, in summary, the context of taking the logs should be considered. So while doing the analysis here, there are different ways or possibilities for doing the audit review. Okay, the audit process. It can be after a specific event. For example, we have a breach, or we have just detected an attempt for a breach, or we have just received a ransom message from a hacker claiming that he has encrypted our data and he is asking for a ransom. So we are doing now an audit trial review after this event in order to review everything and check the compliance and so on, and see, and then later on see who is accountable for that, etc. Okay, the other alternative sorry, the other possibility for doing the audit review or analysis is a periodic one, a preset periodic one. For example, every month, every quarter, every 3 months, and so on. Okay, so we will have all the bulk of data for all the 3 months, the quarter of the year, and then they are going to be audited and reviewed. Okay, there, the other option is the real-time audit analysis, which is part or a crucial part of an intrusion detection system, IDS. Okay, it is real time, so we are recording each and every event and analyzing it at the same time in order to detect any breach as soon as possible. But as you can see here that it is like in a real or near real time fashion, so it needs more processing, it needs advanced processing and capabilities and resources. It may incur overhead for the processing, so we need to be ready for that. So the audit review here, that it will review the actions of one specific user if he is suspected, or of all users if nothing is suspected. So it is a general, periodic, or even real-time audit or review. The actions of specific applications and of specific systems. There might be filtered based on time or source or frequency. There are different ways for analysis. What they can be under one of these 4 approaches. It can be like a basic alerting, alerting, which is the simplest one, simplest form of analysis, that we set like interesting types or hook events they are called. If they happened, so we need to have alert for the administrator to check, to immediately check. For example, if remote access is done, either both, if it is failed or succeeded sorry, it will be alerted. As you can see, for example, sometimes I noticed it from my Google, for example, account. It is set on my mobile and on my laptop. If I am using my kids tablet, for example, and I log in by my Google account on their tablet, for example, I will immediately receive an alert email that your account has been accessed from this device. Is it you or not? If it is you, so it is okay. If not, report it. So this is an example of the alerting based on specific events. Baselining, the other one, from its title again, as a baseline, there will be like a baseline, like default range or processes defining the normal versus abnormal events. If this is happening, these A, B, C, D are happening, so these are normal. But if E, F, G, H are happening, so they are unusual, and there has to be an action or response or an alert even. Okay, so it compare the list of baseline activities or events with what is going to happen now with the current events, and say that this is okay or not. The threshold is even under this baseline. You remember the threshold of biometrics? If the similarity, we said that it is 90% between the samples that are submitted now with what is on the template, so it is okay, it is accepted. But if it is less than that, no, it will be rejected, and so on. Okay, windowing, the third one, is detection of events within a given set of parameters. So it is not just a plain list or specific number. If it is exceeded, then do this and this. No, it is like a range here, more windowing. Okay, such as within a given time period, within a period of time. If, for example, if the access request is between 8 a.m. till 8 p.m., it is okay. But if it is outside that baseline, so a flag can be raised or an alarm alert. Okay, if it is outside this time frame. Okay, the last one is correlation, which is seeking relationships among events. And you can see obviously that there is usually a need here for a level of intelligence. So machine learning can be applied here, artificial intelligence in general can be applied. So it is not like just a plain list, white and black, like in baselining. It is not a range of events or of time of parameter like in windowing, but here relationships. finding relationships between the time, for example, and the level of activity or of action, or the sensitivity of file or service to be accessed. Okay, all of these four together are not inclusive, not the only one, the only ways or approaches for data analysis, and all of them together can be integrated in one single comprehensive system that will be used to analyze all these events. This one single system is called SIEM, Security Information and Event Management System. Security Information and Event Management System, SIEM. So SIEM is a centralized logging and analysis package. It can be implemented agentlessly or agent based. It analyzes combined data, correlated events among log entries, identifies and prioritizes even significant events. It can even initiate responses. Okay, so SIEM systems is a software, as we said, that is centralized logging software package. It is similar to syslog that we talked about a few slides ago in Unix, but it is more comprehensive, more complex than what is in syslog. It can be operated or configured to be agentless or agent based. Agentless means that the collected audit trials will be sent direct logs. The logs will be sent direct from each individual host to the centralized SIEM direct. But the agent based, there is an agent on each host. The agent is a small program or sub program, sub software that is installed on each single individual host that will look initially the events, aggregate them, normalize them, and then send them to the SIEM server. Okay, so we said that SIEM software is able to recognize a variety of log formats. It has some level of intelligence, so it can differentiate between the formats. It can differentiate between operating systems, even if the centralized one is linked with different hosts that are running different operating systems. It can deal with them. It can even deal with physical security control devices like badge readers. As we said regarding the agents, they can normalize, and I think that you have studied in database systems course the normalization, which is generally to unify, it's in other words, the different formats in one format. Like if the the look from different operating systems, for example, came in different formats, here the date first and then the day and then the event ID and type, the numerical IDs or order of different events they came, or they from of each operating system are different than each other. They are normalized to be in one format. If the date, for example, here in this system, in this host, is on the UK format or European format, and the other side is the US format, they will be normalized, they will be unified. If they are irrelevant fields that they are in host A with operating system A, but they are not in host B or operating system B, they cannot be aggregated together, so, and cannot be compared. For example, they will be deleted, they will be considered irrelevant and deleted, and so on. This is an example from Cisco. We don't need it, and we come to the end of this chapter. So we talked about the security auditing in general and its relation with intrusion detection systems. The security audit